Good morning, wellness warriors. Happy Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous day. I'm not really sure what's going on here this morning. I hope you are having a fabulous day. If you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I'm a mom, a nana, a girlfriend, a part-time employee of my local NAMI affiliate, which is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm a jazzerciser, a runner, a wellness advocate, a line dancer, so many things. And most importantly, I started Wellness Wednesday to share the things that I have learned and continue to learn along my journey with anxiety and depression. Because I know that when we share with each other, when we share tips and tricks and experiences, we learn from each other and we learn things we might not have otherwise known. And that is why peer support works so well. When you hear about peer support groups, that is why those work so well. And oftentimes I look like this because when you see me, I'm either coming from or going to a workout, because I have also learned that, good morning, Miss Sarah, the physical activity is critical to my wellness, to my mental wellness for sure. So I'm going to get started. If you are just stumbling on my page, welcome, and I hope that you'll continue to follow, and you'll find that sometimes some of the things I talk about make a lot of sense, and sometimes you'll be like, wait, what did she just say? And just go with it, because usually there's a tidbit in there somewhere for everyone. If you have watched before, then I hope you enjoyed last week's video. Last week's video was on the connection between gut and mental health. And boy, gut health, there's a lot you could dig into there. But today's topic was not what I originally planned. It was not. Next month is May, literally tomorrow. And May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I had kind of a preamble to that I wanted to talk about. And I was originally planning to literally just kind of ramp into Mental Health Awareness Month. But God has a way of giving you signs and speaking directly to me, whatever your beliefs are, if you listen. And that happened this weekend, and I had a fabulous weekend. And part of my weekend entailed kind of finally closing a chapter that, of my life that has just taken a little bit longer than I expected to kind of put to bed, if you will. And I was feeling a lot of relief about that. I really was. But at the same time, there was also that little part of me, and that's the overthinking, old anxiety part. Good morning, Miss Danielle. Where I was also feeling a little bit of dissatisfaction, I guess some people would say, some type of way about it too at the same time, where I felt like, I've talked before about big fish in little pond syndrome, where this is the final chapter in this for me. And that means that I am no longer the big fish. And so I was feeling less important and less respected in those moments. And I kept going back and forth. And I know I probably sound cryptic, but just follow me for a minute here. I kept going back and forth between feeling relieved about that and understanding that that there were some things that I was thinking about that were coming into my head that just didn't matter anymore, and that it was okay because I have bigger and better things to do for me, not bigger and better in general, just for me. And I kept going back and forth between it doesn't matter, let it go, and just, that's not how I would do it, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So, and this is what happens. I mean, let's face it. This is what happens when anything, any kind of relationship comes to an end, whether it's a work relationship, a relationship with a person, a relationship with anything. Okay. We've got that little bit of fear, that little bit of, well, now what? But at the same time, sometimes in order for us to move the needle forward, we have to stop stepping backwards. Okay. And that's kind of where I'm going with this today. So like I said, I was kind of struggling back and forth. I was feeling some type of way, kind of a simultaneous, I guess that's what they call bittersweet. So kind of a, good morning, Miss Kayla, kind of a simultaneous relief, but at the same time, I'm not important anymore, and I'm not going to do this anymore. And you know what I mean? So there's two things that happen in a very short period of time after that moment. And this wasn't something, when I talk about this moment, it's not something that went on the whole weekend. It was literally like right towards the tail end as we're wrapping up. And I was having this struggle of meh with yay, you know what I mean? And so there was two things that happened in that very short amount of time, that I really had to pay attention to. And one of them was that I ran into an old friend that I haven't seen in a while. And that person stopped me. And this is where I'm going to start getting emotional. So I'm going to try not to. And I saw an old friend, and that person stopped me and told me, and we've talked about this before, how much it fills my heart when I hear these things, and said, I watch your Wellness Wednesday every week. It's the only reason I get on Facebook. And they said that, and I could see, despite their sunglasses, that their face was starting to react to emotion. And they proceeded to tell me that I had no idea, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't remember the exact words because I was so blown away by the exchange. If I didn't say good morning to Danielle and Kayla, good morning, I feel like I'm losing my noodle here. They said to me that they watch every week and that I have no idea how much it's helped. And it kind of just stopped my world in its tracks for a minute. Okay, so, and then the second thing that happened, literally minutes, now remember, my head's all in a twist up here. I'm all like, yay, and meh. So I'm all twisted up here. And then the next thing that happens is that a woman hears my voice announced over the microphone and comes looking for me at the stage and introduces themselves and tells me that I have been selected for the scholarship that I applied for not that long ago. So in these two moments, kind of like everything I was feeling, all that fear and all that concern and all that kind of bittersweet just kind of stopped, because I truly felt that God was telling me, knock it off. You're on the right track. And just in case you forgot, here I am to remind you. And it was literally like just a couple minutes of magic, and nobody else really saw what was going on in my head to start with. So they didn't get to see that part of it either, but it was huge. So fast forward, the weekend's over. I got to come home. I got to finish my paper. And I got to do my taxes because I hadn't done my taxes yet either. And so I get up on Monday morning and I'm kind of moving at my own pace, but I've got a lot to do. And it's like a block has lifted and things are just flowing in my brain. Because remember, and a good friend has told me, sometimes God breaks our arms so that we have to let go. Sometimes when you try to let go of something and somehow keep stepping back into it, it prevents you from moving forward. And that's really where I'm going with this. So all the things are flowing Monday morning. Good morning, Michelle. I feel like with your emojis, you kind of have an idea what I'm talking about. So things are Monday morning, things are just kind of flowing, and I'm still going back to those two moments, those two people I talked to, and the timing of that. And I'm like, that was not a coincidence. I was being told to stop going there and focus on there. And I hope I'm making sense to somebody. Anyway, so as I'm going through all of this, as I'm writing down these things and I'm coming up with ideas, and I'm starting to work on my Wellness Wednesday topic, which I was absolutely sure I knew what I was going to talk about. And then all of a sudden, as I'm starting to work on it, this question comes into my head. And it was largely because I was thinking about things I had been doing all along to move the needle forward. And now I could maybe do that more so because I would feel less split between old life and new life, if you will. But this question just came into my head out of nowhere, and I wrote it down. And that's why this episode is called The Sticky Note. And that question was so loud in my head. And it was, what are you doing today to move? What are you doing to move what are you doing today to move the needle forward? And I wrote it down, and all of a sudden, like, I've got to talk about this week. I've got to talk about this week. So now that you have the backstory, which may sound a little cryptic, here's where we're going with this. So we all have goals or dreams that we still want to accomplish regardless of our age, our stage of life, where we are at in our careers, where we are at in our family. Doesn't matter. We all have goals or dreams that we still want to accomplish. And most of the time, those are feasible, okay? Whether it's launching a business, improving your health, traveling, learning a new skill or hobby, creating deeper relationships, going back to school, pick one. Yes, they are. That's exactly what they're called, Kayla. No matter, it's you pick Wednesday, pick one. There are so many things that we each want to do. It can seem, and how big or small it seems is really up to you, because it can seem as small as, I don't know, writing a book. Although that seems kind of big to me. It can seem as small as just getting back into regular physical activity 2 to 3 days a week. Or starting a weekly video series on Facebook that you think nobody's going to listen to. We all have these big goals or dreams that we want to accomplish, again, regardless of our ages or stages of life. And no matter what stage of life you're in, whether you're just getting started, whether you're midway through, there's science says there's now something called a quarter life crisis that's similar to a midlife crisis. Whether you're retired, it's never too late to want more. And it's also okay to want more even when you're content with what you have. It's okay to want to improve a little bit or tweak over here or whatever, okay? But as I've mentioned, and this seems to be a theme this year, what are you laughing at, Kayla? This seems to be a theme this year. These things don't happen overnight. How many times have you heard me, if you're following me regular, have you heard me say this? As small as designing next year's logo. Exactly. How many times have you heard me say this lately? These things do not happen overnight. I even did a post about it. Nothing happens overnight. We have to honor the journey. But at the same time, sometimes when we keep stepping backwards, it's a lot more difficult for us to go forward, or we don't go as forward as we should be. So while these things don't happen overnight, they are built with daily actions that move the needle just a little bit at a time. And that's what this is about. It's about moving the needle a little bit at a time. So when this question came out of thin air, it was so loud that I had to write it down on this sticky note. And I immediately thought that I should post this somewhere so I can see it every day, like an affirmation. And every small step toward these goals, dreams, lifestyles, etc. matters, especially on the days when it feels like nothing's happening. Now, this may sound a little bit repetitive, like something I talked about a few weeks ago, and it very well could be. But obviously, good morning, Miss Carla. Obviously, I have a very strong urge to tell you this again. So somebody here, somebody that's listening or somebody that's going to listen later needs to hear this. So let's talk some nerd facts. You guys know I love my nerd facts. And what science says, because I can support what science says from my own personal experiences, okay? So when it comes to moving the needle forward and how that looks, writing goals boosts achievement by 42%. Now, I had a mentor who I'm pretty sure I thought was nuts and probably looked at her like she had 10 heads when she told me to start writing down my goals. I'm like, what? But writing goals boosts achievement by 42%. Now, how you do it is up to you. You can write down what your goals are, but the general consensus is whether you are a believer or not, and the reason I say whether you are a believer or not, because the Bible says to pray as if you've already received. But the general consensus in most of this with writing down goals is to write it down as if you've already achieved it. So this was a famous study by Dr. Gail Matthews. I have it up here on my computer just in case I forget. From the Dominican University of California. And Dr. Gail Matthews found that people who wrote down their goals were 42%. That's huge, y'all. 42% more likely to achieve them versus those that just kept them up here. And I was great at keeping stuff up here. And plus, writing activates the left logical side and the creative right side of the brain, so that they're both working together for a stronger impact, which might explain why when I started making notes about the weekend, all of a sudden things just started opening up and things just started to flow, because I think like my left brain and my right brain were kind of working together in one of those rare moments. So second nerd fact, the reticular activating system is like your brain's personal assistant. And some of this is about to sound familiar to you. Sorry, morning allergies. Is like your brain's personal assistant. So it prioritizes whatever you tell it is important. So it's kind of like the sticky note. If I stick this up somewhere and I see this every day, my brain is going to learn that this is important. And it's going to start looking for opportunities that align with that importance, with that thing, okay? It's kind of like the red car syndrome or red car effect. And that's exactly what this refers to, because your brain, your reticular activating system, begins to take notice of and prioritize the things that match up to what you've told it is important. And you start seeing those, which is why there's so much science behind the fact, and I have personally experienced the fact, that if you walk out the door convinced your day is gonna suck, convinced you're cursed or whatever, and nothing ever goes right, that's what you're gonna get. Whereas if you walk out the door convinced that this is gonna be a great day full of opportunities, that's what you're more likely to focus on. That's your reticular activating system at work. So you're welcome for the red car, because now you're going to notice all of them again. We've talked about that before. And visual cues help lock that behavior. When you see a visual reminder, it acts as a cue to spark action. That's why I tell you to write your affirmations on sticky notes. But this is now a question. This is a question that's going to make my brain think every single day. Okay? So visual cues help lock your behavior. When you see a visual reminder, it acts as a cue to spark on action. Over time, your brain will connect that cue with progress, like a small reward, like a reward system, and help reinforce the behavior. So now we're just talking about a little classical conditioning here, right? We have to condition ourselves. Basically, your motivation will come from the environment that you yourself design. So how you set things up, where you put visual cues, what you put on your vision board, all of those things will impact how your reticular activating system and how your brain then proceeds to view opportunities and things that align with what you think is important. And finally, neuroscience shows that when you imagine or visualize, let's try that again. Visualize yourself achieving or succeeding, like running a race, giving a speech, completing a goal, your brain reacts the same way as if it's actually happening. And do you know why? Because your brain can't tell the difference between practice and reality, okay? That's the bottom line. It doesn't know the difference between mental practice and real practice, which is why when we talk about meditation or visualization, we talk about, if you want to achieve this goal, what does it look like? What does it feel like? Are you crying? What are you hearing? What are the words that are being said to you? What does it smell like? These are huge things behind visualization, and it's because if you can visualize all those things, what it feels like, what it smells like, what it tastes like, whatever, then your brain doesn't know the difference. And so now you've told your brain that this is extremely important and this is where you want to be. And it's not that these opportunities suddenly appear. They've been there. Your brain they're more salient now because you've told your brain what is important. This was Michael Jordan credits his success as a basketball player, and we've talked about this before too, to constantly harnessing the power of visualization to imagine himself making this shot over and over and over again, winning the game, seeing his name on the trophy, seeing his name in the newspaper articles, whatever, repeatedly. If he wanted to learn a new skill that would help him with basketball, he visualized himself doing it, and then he did it. So there is some real science here, and I've experienced some of this myself. Manifesting is essentially what it boils down to. Yes, Danielle, that is perfect. They're all kind of tied together, and these are things that I've experienced. These are truly things that I've experienced. And each time we do one of these little things, like if your goal is a new car, okay, and you're online and you're researching the car and you've narrowed down the car and you've got the car on your vision board, and you're looking at ways, Is the car just going to appear? No. But what happens is your brain says, this is important. This is where we want to be. And it starts recognizing the opportunities to move that needle forward. So a few weeks ago, I did an episode called Small Bites, which had some similar information. So that's what we're going to talk about now, small bites. Toward the beginning of the year, I talked about how change doesn't happen overnight. And if you've watched me for a while, you know that some of this stuff is repetitive. But why is that? Because sometimes we need to hear it over and over and over again. We got to have this knocked on a few times before we're ready to receive it, right? So I feel like it's been a theme for a few episodes, but here's how we can start this process in small bites. Okay, I'm not sure why you're raising your hand. Maybe because, was it in reference to needing to hear things several times over? But I love your little hand raisers. So tiny little steps. If you're trying to get in the habit of keeping your house cleaner, getting up and making the bed every morning is a great place to start. I never would have believed this. I went years without making my bed. When I lived in a very small apartment for a year, new car. There you go. See? Get it on your vision board, woman. And start moving the needle forward on that. So I lived in a very small apartment, and I felt the need to keep it cleaner because it was very small and it didn't take much to make it look trashed, right? And around this time, well, I was single and I was living by myself, and I think somebody was coming over to do service on the house. So I was really paranoid about making sure everything was clean, that the bed didn't look messed up. You know what I mean? Because you could see the bed from the stinking door. So I started getting in the habit. I made the bed one morning and I was like, wow, I feel like I've accomplished something. This is fantastic. So guess what I did the next morning? The next morning I started to walk away from the bed without making it. And I kept getting this nagging feeling that I needed to go back and make the bed. So I made the bed again. Well, next thing you know, fast forward like 3 years later, and I can't even leave the stinking bedroom in the morning without making the darn bed. But what has happened is that I keep my area neater, more under control now than I ever have before. And it means that by the time I walk out of my bedroom in the morning, I already feel like I've accomplished something. So think about that. So how can you move the needle forward? Whatever the item is, if there's an email you need to send to start a conversation or to figure something out, then send the email. Make the bed. Stretch for 5 minutes if you're trying to get yourself more physically in shape, more flexible. Exchange one soda for water today if you're trying to drink less soda. And then tomorrow, see if you can exchange 2 for water. These things don't happen to have to happen overnight. They don't have to be big, gigantic leaps to feel like, and I know that's what it takes sometimes to make us feel like something's happening. But those 2 conversations that I had this weekend that came at just the right time to quiet my brain and my fears down, because that's what that was. That was fear that, there's always going to be those last minute fears like you're not making the right decision. Are you sure about this? Anytime that anytime you step out of your comfort zone, but especially if you're getting ready to leave a comfort zone forever, for lack of a better way to put it. So that's what those were about. I really truly felt like my God said, ooh, look at the brain spin over here. Let's go fix this because she's exactly where I need her to be right now. And I need her to know that's where she needs to be right now. So I'm still getting very emotional about it. There was so much. See, that's a great rule, Carla. And it really starts something. There's actually a short book that's a very easy read. And I can't remember the author's name right now, but he's an ex-Navy SEAL, I believe. And it's called Make Your Bed. And it's definitely worth the read. Definitely worth the read. And I was already making my bed for a long time before that, but still definitely a great reinforcement. So again, exchange 1 soda for water, and tomorrow try for 2. If you have an idea of something you want to do that's going to, change your life, change somebody else's, do a little research. Make the phone call, whatever it is. Do one little thing every single day that's going to move the needle forward on whatever that is. Because there were lots of days. There are lots of days. Kayla, I'll have to look that up later because I don't know the verse numbers like you do. So I'm impressed. I just want to say that. So there are a lot of days where I stomp over here to my desk and I do my homework and my schoolwork and I do whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is this chapter ever going to end? Am I really getting anywhere with this? What the heck? Do I really, And then things like what happened this weekend, because remember, I've told you before that I've been told before that I work too hard, that I shouldn't worry so much about my grades because the person that scores the lowest in medical school is still called doctor. I'm pretty sure that while this scholarship, me being chosen for this scholarship, was based on a lot of things, I'm pretty sure my GPA was probably one of them. So again, all those times where I was like, am I really getting anywhere with this? I'm really still not sure what I'm doing. Why do I keep having to interrupt this to come back here and do this? All of that time, seeds were being planted. And today was like Wellness Wednesday. There have been times where I've looked at my video after I've gotten done or a couple days later, and the views are so low, I'm like, nobody's watching, nobody cares, nobody wants to hear anything. And then I have something like what happened this weekend where someone I haven't talked to in forever that I had no idea was watching tells me how much it means to them. And that tells me that is something I need to keep doing. And I've said that before, that if it just impacts one person in a positive way, then it's totally worth it. So last year, I also had an episode where I talked a little bit about SMART, and it's the same thing. SMART are the same thing. You're breaking a goal into little tiny manageable bites that you can accomplish within a certain period of time that will step you to the next thing. So all of these times where I felt like maybe I wasn't getting anywhere, I was spinning my wheels, or I kept getting pulled backwards, the seeds were being planted. I was moving the needle forward, and I couldn't see it. You know why? Because it was tiny little things every day that I was doing to move the needle forward. It was tiny little seeds that I was planting. And I know this sounds like another episode. So we need to do something each day to move the needle a little further. I have a family member who is about 6 years older than me. Okay, I'm 51. This family member is about 6 years older than me. And they have been talking for a very long time about registering and doing their master's degree like I'm doing, but for social work instead of clinical mental health counseling. There's not huge differences there. They finally registered in March. Remember, they're 6 years older than me. They finally registered to begin their master's in March, and they will be starting in August. So again, if you keep it up here, it's less likely to happen. He finally took that step and did those registrations, and did a Facebook post to record it to kind of commemorate the decision. And now every little thing he does towards that, like asking me where I got my new DSM-5, is a step in that direction. So even when we don't feel like it, we have to know that taking those little tiny steps every day in that direction, whatever that direction is, whatever it is extremely important. So I'm going to invite you today to put a sticky note up to ask you what you're doing to move the needle forward today on whatever your goal, your dream, your desire, your wish is. What are you doing? Because it's not just going to... Michelle, I can't read that whole comment, so I'll have to look at it when I get done. It's not just going to fall in your lap. You have to make it work. So what are you doing to move the needle forward today? Write it down. Put it up somewhere. Just like you would an affirmation. So I forgot to ask you at the beginning, did you try a gut-friendly food swap for last week? And if you did, let me know in the comments or through Messenger how it felt, if it affected you mentally, emotionally, if you noticed a difference or whatever. But this week, my challenge to you is to find one tiny thing that you can do today, one tiny thing today that will move you just a tiny little bit, maybe an inch closer to your dream or goal. Something you want to do. Doesn't matter how small or big. What is a tiny step you can take today that maybe might take you 30 seconds to do, something you've been putting off, sending a text, an email, Googling something quick, something that will move you forward for just one time today. What are you doing today? Kayla, if that's what you're saying, nope to, the day is like just started. It's not even close to over. So don't give me that nope. What are you doing today? And then I would ask you, oh, swap fried foods for steak. Yes. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I don't know if we would call steak tacos gut friendly, but far more gut friendly than fried foods. So there you go. So my challenge to you guys again today is find one thing today that you can do that's going to move that needle forward, whatever it is. And then, like I said, I want you to try to look at each day, ask yourself the question, what am I doing today to move the needle forward on my goal? So remember, my family member talked and talked and talked. It was all up here until they actually registered for classes, told somebody they were going to do it, and then they did it. So keep that in mind. You're always planting seeds, but you need to know that you're planting seeds. You need to know that you're not going to see results right away, but that those seeds are the most important thing. So every single day, it's easy to get into the grind and just get caught up in the normal daily routine and not do the things that you need to do to move yourself forward. What are you doing today to do that? Okay? So remember these things. I'm going to wrap it up, and I hope something I said made some sense to you and that you found it helpful. I think there might be a little something in today's Wellness Wednesday for everybody, maybe perceived a little different. But remember these things. You don't need a giant leap every day. Inches count. In fact, inches sometimes count more, okay? Because we can't see them. And so it forces us to kind of be faithful and just keep going. Consistency matters more than intensity. Sometimes we feel like we just have to go all in, balls to the wall. Yes, I said that. Sorry. Hope Facebook doesn't flag me. Balls to the wall. We got to go all in. Sometimes it truly is in the little tiny things we do each day that are consistent. So consistency matters more than intensity. Action beats perfection. You guys have heard me say this before. A couple of my mentors have said this before, and it really, really helped me a lot. Done is better than perfect. Y'all, I can overthink with the best of them. I can analyze it, overanalyze it, rationalize it, move it over here, rearrange it, all of it, okay? At the end of the day, done is better than perfect sometimes, okay? And that's it. That's everything I've got. If you found this helpful or you think someone else will, please share. Ask yourself what you're doing to move the needle forward today. Put it on a sticky note. Put your goal, your dream, whatever, on a vision board, or put it on a vision note, or put it on a sticky note. This Saturday, if you're local to me, this Saturday we have the NAMI Walk for National Alliance on Mental Illness. Because, again, starting tomorrow, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. I have a team. If you'd like to donate, join, participate, whatever, I'm going to drop the link in the comments. Hope to see you at whatever level, whether you're donating, participating, or just observing. I hope to see my local people at the NAMI Walks on Saturday at 5:30 at the Seven Rivers Warrior Park. If you are not local, look for that link and you'll be able to donate to the cause if you would like. And in the meantime, I hope everybody has a fabulous week. Get rid of those blocks, start moving the needle forward, and you might be surprised how much more flows up here like it did for me. I love you. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week during Mental Health Awareness Month. And in the meantime, be well. Bye.